Hello and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host Rob, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the role of the summoner in D&D. Now I've already made some similar videos talking about battlefield control and talking about the role of direct damage, but I really wanted to focus on an aspect that I don't really see a lot of people using, and when they do use it, a lot of times it just causes problems, and that's summoning lots of creatures. Now obviously there's a lot of reasons why you might want to summon things. The most obvious being to have more offense. Obviously, the more actions you have on your side in the combat, the better your chances are of winning said combat. But they can also be used defensively to set a screen of creatures between you and, say, attackers. And, somebody trying to get at your caster might be willing to eat one opportunity attack from Paladin, but they might not want to eat 12 opportunity attacks from a horde of rabid wolverines that you have summoned. Another good thing about summons is that they can be used for scouting. They can be used for a lot of utility as well. If you're worried the hallway is trapped, send your summoned zombie down the hallway first and check the traps by, falling into the pit. You can use them to even do things like open chests or whatever sometimes, depending on what the summons may be. Some of them have some really great abilities as well. Like an invisible stalker, for example, makes an excellent spy to scout. And in political campaigns, I will often have villains who specifically, use invisible stalkers to fulfill this role and can spy on other NPCs or even on the party. Another nice thing about summons is that they're available fairly early on. There's some good low-level spells that can really add a lot of power, and they don't require a high summoning or a high casting stat. Which means that even on like a multi-class character or say someone like a ranger, you can cast a bunch of conjure woodland beings or conjure animals, and it still can be effective even if you didn't max out your wisdom because you were more worried about dex, which makes sense on a ranger. Because it doesn't key off your wisdom, you just have to have enough to be able to be a ranger and cast a spell, and it's still going to work out okay. However, like I said, there's also a lot of problems with summoning spells, and I've never played in a game like this myself, I've never experienced it, but I've seen online where a lot of people say that they actually ban summons from their games because they take too much time. Let's face it, you've probably seen it happen at least once or twice, even if your table hasn't done it a lot, but somebody casts a spell, they summon a whole bunch of creatures, and now you have to look up the spell to see what they can summon. Then it turns out the player doesn't get to choose. The DM chooses. So now the DM has to go through the monster manual and Volos and maybe Mordenkainen's Tomophoes or whatever else you're using in order to find an appropriate creature. And then when you do some of these creatures, it turns out the player gets 8 of them. And then they pull out their one and only D20, their lucky D20 that they refuse to use any other D20, and they roll each one of those creatures 8 different times. But each one of those creatures had 3 attacks around, it turns out. And so he's had to roll 24 times. And his turn takes 45 minutes. And by the time he gets to the barbarian, he suddenly realizes that now there's 12 creatures in the way, and after waiting 45 minutes to get his turn, just so he can try to swing his 2-handed axe at something, he can't even get to it because your summons are in the way and you've ruined his turn. It doesn't matter if those summons did more damage than the barbarian probably would have on his turn. All he knows is that he came here to have fun and to play a game, and he spent 45 minutes watching you roll 1d20 over and over again while the DM looked up statistics in the monster manual, and then he didn't get to attack. Don't do that to people. It ruins their game, and it just kills the momentum as well. People start getting bored, phones start coming out, and all momentum is lost. There's a lot of things you can do to try to speed things up and make it easier for your Dungeon Master. I've actually played a couple different characters who summon, and even though it's a lot more work for me, this is what I've done. On my one character, who's a Warlock, I wanted to use like a lot of conjured demons and elementals and stuff. I just thought it'd be kind of cool. So I actually went through all the different things, summon lots of demons, summon greater demons, infernal calling. I made notes on what their charisma saves were. I wrote down how good I thought they were for different roles, and I had stuff on the back as well. I did the same thing on my Divine Soul Sorcerer when I decided I was going to take Planar Ally and summon Conjure Celestial. I just went through and I made a list of the different ones and what their CRs were and whether or not I could do it with the 7th level spell slot if I had to upgrade it or whatever. And yes, it makes my job a little harder as a player, but it also saves time in the game when I can tell the DM, I'm going to do this, you get to choose the creatures, here's a list of all the different creatures available. And in our case, we actually use third-party materials like the Tome of Beasts and the Creature Codex, so there's even more stuff for me to go through. That's an extra 1,200 and some odd pages of monsters to sort through. But the point is, I don't want to have to spend 45 minutes on my turn just destroying the game for all the other players at the table, just because I wanted to summon a Celestial, you know? I want to have its stats ready so I'm not disrupting the game and things can proceed. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the idea of a summoner role. Obviously, anybody who has access to, you know, conjure woodland beings or conjure elemental or summon lesser demons could be a summoner. But I wouldn't necessarily say that they're, you know, a summoner, or just that they have a summoning spell. Just like I wouldn't say that a diviner who takes fireball is a blaster. An evoker who decides to also pick up conjure elementals, I wouldn't say is a summoner. I'm looking more at characters who want to make that the main focus of their class. Otherwise, you know, a warrior with a Horn of Valhalla could technically be a summoner. And yes, he kind of is. But the point is that that's not his dedicated role. So I want to look at people who do the job really well and kind of what makes them good in that role. And obviously there's 3 real standout choices, but I'm going to include a 4th choice as well just because it's thematic. And obviously the first choice when you think of conjuring things is the Conjurer Wizard. It's pretty simple, it's right there in the name. Another choice is the Necromancer, who decides to animate corpses and use the dead as his form of summoning and bringing creatures back. Another choice is the Circle of Shepherd Druid from Xanatars. And I'm actually excited to talk about this one because I haven't actually made any Druid videos yet. So it's a class I've wanted to get to, but I just haven't yet. And when I was preparing for this video, I saw that Circle of Shepherd actually had a lot of stuff that would help to make it an excellent summoner. And unlike, say, the wizards, who are going to have a lot of overlap in the spells they can choose, the druid has completely different spells, and that makes it a lot more interesting. The 4th one we're going to talk about a little bit, I've already alluded to, and that is the idea of a summoner. Warlock, who is the character I tried to actually play in our Dragon Heist campaign. But I died at level 1 when we had our total party kill. I mentioned that in the Dragon Heist video. So I never really got to summon anything. I didn't even get to use my Conjure Summon Familiar yet because, you know, you don't get it until level 3 as a Warlock. So I'd never summoned anything ever. Not once. So sad. Anyways, as for the classes themselves. Well, let's start with the Circle of Shepherd Druid, because that's the one I'm most excited to talk about. At level 2, you have a choice of 3 different totems. All of them are really good, actually, although I probably think that the bear and the unicorn are the strongest, but you can't go wrong with any of them. They're all quite good. But at level 6 is when you start getting benefits to your actual summon spells. Any creatures you conjure will have +2 hit points per hit dice, which is a pretty nice bonus. And their attacks count as magical damage, which is an even better bonus. Because one thing you will find with a lot of conjurations is that they're very, very strong at the level that you originally get them for. So let's say you're level 5, you first get Animate Dead. Skeletons are awesome at level 5. They aren't necessarily great when you're level 20 and your skeletons can't hit anything you're fighting. And even if they do hit, it turns out that it can only be damaged by magical weapons. And you know, suddenly you're like, this sucks. And it's the same thing with the druid. The fact that you're going to be able to actually cast Conjure Animals, and that those animals can actually hit things, even if they're only hurt by magical weapons, is an awesome bonus. And you're getting it at level 6, which is pretty early on. At level 10, your summons are healed by your totem. If they end the turn within its range, they get like half the druid level worth of hit points at the end, which is, you know, it's okay. I wouldn't say it's great, but it's nice that they can have some more durability at least. At level 14, when you're incapacitated, you automatically summon a bunch of creatures. You get 4 beasts of CR2, and they just appear within 20 feet of you, and they will do anything they can to protect you. So if you get knocked out in combat, woodland animals come to your rescue. It's actually pretty cool. As far as the Conjurer doesn't really get a lot of good conjuring stuff for like the purpose of summoning creatures until level 10. Most of your low level conjure abilities are just, summoning inanimate objects and whatnot. But at level 10 you get focused concentration, which means that your concentration on summoning spells can't be broken by taking damage. And this is awesome because a lot of times your conjurations might actually not be dispelled on losing concentration. They might actually turn on you when losing concentration. Not so good. If you have a fight that was already a tough fight to begin with, and now suddenly your greater demon is free and loose and attacking you, you just turned a hard fight into an even worse fight. But Conjurer doesn't have to worry about that. Starting at level 10, concentration can't be broken by taking damage. At level 14, you get the durable summons, where your summons each get 30 temporary hit points, which again I like because a lot of the creatures don't necessarily scale very well. Like I said, they're very powerful at the level you get it, right? Conjure Elemental is an amazing ability when you're level 9 and you're first getting 5th level spells, but those same elementals aren't so great when you're, level 15 or 18 or 20, and now they're more of a distraction or a nuisance. But the extra temporary hit points can help them to at least survive like AoE attacks and stuff like that. They're still probably going to go down pretty quickly against any sort of focused concentration on them. But hey, even then, that's attacks that could have been going to a party member that instead went to your Earth Elemental. As for the Necromancer, they get Animate Dead for free at level 6. They can also target an additional creature when they cast Animate Dead, which is pretty handy, allowing you to build your undead army even faster. Their max hit points are increased by your wizard level, so kind of similar to the Conjurer in the way they get the temporary hit points. Your creatures have higher max hit points. And you get to add your proficiency bonus, like your proficiency bonus, to their weapon damage. At level 14, it's not really a summons, but you get Command Undead, which I figured I'd mention specifically just because it's so good, allowing you to actually take over other undead. And we have a level 17 Necromancer in my current campaign I'm running, the Whitespire campaign, and he's managed to use this on some like really particularly stupid undead and have amazing effect, because they get a saving throw every hour, I believe it is, and it's an intelligence save. So the more intelligent ones like liches and stuff are probably going to break free. But he used it on like some sort of undead drake thing they fought and took over it, and then he just had it for the rest of the day, and it was just like, breathing shadow damage on things and clawing things up, and was amazingly useful. It had a fly speed, so he could use it to scout. It was particularly good. So technically not a summons, but still worth mentioning. The last one I wanted to talk about, like I said, is the Warlock, and mostly just is this because I think Warlocks are kind of thematically sort of fit into that role of a Conjurer, right? If you take, say, the Hexblade, you get the Accursed Spectre at level 6, so the first time you kill a humanoid, you just automatically get the Spectre. And I like it because it doesn't require an action or a bonus action or anything else. It just happens automatically. It's with you for 24 hours. You don't have to maintain concentration on it. It's just there. And it's really good when you're level 6. Again, it doesn't scale at all. It becomes quite terrible and useless. It does get temporary hit points equal to like half your Warlock level, but that's nothing. But it's still an excellent scout, and, like I said, it's a free ability. It doesn't really cost you anything. And a lot of level 6 abilities, and some classes are really good, some classes not so much. This is one that, you don't have to activate it. It just goes off, and I kind of like that. And then, of course, you can take the Circle of the Chain, go with the Familiar. I kind of like the Imp here, because if I'm going to be doing a lot of summon spells on a Warlock, I'm probably looking towards things like Summon Lesser Demons and Summon Greater Demons, which can be very tricky spells to use. And they have kind of a bad reputation because the demons are hostile to everyone, including the party members, and could turn on you, which is, of course, very easy to have happen. But I do think there's ways to get around it. As part of the casting the spell, you can make a circle for yourself so they can't actually attack you, which means that you only have your friends to worry about. Are they really that good of friends? Come on, how well do you know these people? They seem pretty murderous overall. But even if they do turn on your friends, Summon lesser demons isn't so bad because the demons are gone when you lose concentration. So you can just drop concentration and get rid of the demons. Summon greater demons, not so easy. That one actually sticks around even after you lose concentration for, I believe, D6 plus 1 round. And that could actually be a bit of an issue. But still not so bad. The reason I like the Imp the most, though, is because he has Persuasion. And if you have Persuasion on your character as well, which you probably should since you're Charisma and you're a Warlock, it means that he could actually take the help action, giving you advantage on your Persuasion rolls if you're using spells like, say, Infernal Calling, if you're trying to make, those Faustian bargains with terrible beings. Giving yourself advantage is probably a good thing. So I kind of like that from a thematic standpoint. Then you can always take the invocation that gives you the Conjure Elemental. I think it's called Minion of Chaos. And, kind of make you a nice little summoner there. It's also important to talk about different roles of summoning spells and different types, because some of them have a casting time of 1 action, which means you can use it in combat. It's an in-combat summons. And some do not. Some have a casting time of a minute or 10 minutes, and clearly you're not going to be able to use that in a fight. And it's important to know in advance which ones you can use in combat and which ones you can't. Because if you're going to try to drop a Planar Ally on somebody, and then you realize that you can't summon this in combat, and you actually need to make a sort of a bargain with it in order for it to help you, you kind of want to have those details worked out and fresh in your mind before the fight starts. This is one of the things where I like Summon Lesser and Summon Greater Demons. They're clearly not as good as spells as some of the other summons. But like I said, there is a lot of downside. They could turn on you. Lesser Demons especially is safer because you can dispel them yourself just by losing concentration. But they also tend to really suck. And there's just not a lot of good choices in the monster manual. As I mentioned, we use the Creature Codex and Toba Beast as well. So between those and Mordenkainen's and Volo's and the monster manual, by now you've got 5 different books. You've actually got a wide selection at that point. But it's still a pretty limited spell. But it does have a range on it. It only costs 1 action to cast. And, you can just send a bunch of demons 50, 60 feet away from you in the midst of a bunch of enemies, and now they're going to have to deal with those. And sometimes they'll have spells, and they can really cause a lot of problems for the enemy. Something like Conjure Elemental cannot be used in combat, and, like I said, you kind of want to have that worked out in advance. As far as the Druid ones, things like Conjure Animals and Conjure Little Beings are both pretty good. Conjure Animals only takes an action. It's a 3rd level spell, so you've got it at 5th level. And you've got some pretty good choices there. And like I said, especially if you go Circle of Shepherd, they're going to have a little extra durability. I mean, remember that a lot of these things only have a couple of hit dice to begin with. So getting an extra 2 hit points per hit dice could mean it has 2 extra hit points or 4 extra hit points. It's not going to be a big deal. But, more hit points, still more hit points. By the time you're 5th level or 6th level, if you're summoning, say, wolves and whatnot, an extra 4, 6, 8 hit points could be a big difference because a lot of stuff you're fighting isn't hitting that hard. If you're trying to use it to fight a dragon, maybe not so much. Another thing to talk about is the difference between a lot of low-level creatures that you can get from some spells versus one powerful creature, like, say, with Conjure Elementals or Infernal Calling. And between the two, I generally like a lot of small creatures in most circumstances. Like I said, if you're fighting a dragon or something and all these weak creatures are going to get killed by one breath weapon, maybe not. I mean, you need to be aware of what the circumstances are. But in our first campaign, my buddy Troy played a ranger, and I believe they were 16th level at the time, and he decided to cast one of his conjure spells. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Conjure Animals. Or no, it was probably Woodland Beings, or maybe Fae, who knows. He used some sort of conjuration spell and got himself a bunch of sprites or brownies or pixies. Not really the point. Point is, he had a ton of these things though, and they all had, different attacks, and there was spell save DCs, or they'd put people to sleep or poison them or whatever it was. It's been a while, I don't remember all the details. I just remember that there was a ton of them, And then he also decided to use his Horn of Valhalla to summon even more stuff. And the summons basically just one, like this was like the second last fight of the campaign essentially. Did it fight the Guardian of the Gate, go through, and then fight the minions of the King in Yellow. And the Gate Guardian was pretty powerful. I think she was like a CR 22 or 23 creature. And they just overwhelmed her with a lot of weak, crappy creatures. And then, of course, you know, their own spells and some decent player attacks as well. But it ended up being super effective. And a lot of her minions, she was pretty much immune to all the creatures' attacks. But I just remember her minions just dropping like flies, because even though they all had pretty good saving throws, when you might look at a save and say, oh, it's only a DC 10. But when you have to make 8 DC 10 saving throws in a single round, something might get through and you could find yourself being incapacitated. It was a real difference maker in that fight. It's been a difference maker in other fights. Troy's currently playing the Necromancer in the Spire campaign that I mentioned. And, you know, so there's been many times when he's had a horde of undead, and he'll use Animate Dead several times, and then he'll use like Dance Macabre, which by the way is an excellent spell if you're a Necromancer, or even if you're not, but especially on Necromancers, and get even more undead. It only has a casting time of an action as well, so you can use that one in combat. And, you know, just the sheer number of undead, all, you know, shooting bows at stuff, because skeletons can use bows, and just focusing down one target is just ridiculous. And Troy does a good job of actually like trying to streamline things and keep it pretty straightforward. If he has like 5 skeletons, he'll just roll all 5 on one attack, and either all hit or they all miss, and then we don't have to worry about it. And if he has like say 15, maybe he'll do all 15 at once, maybe he'll break them into groups of 5, whatever. Point is, he doesn't have to waste a lot of time for it, and so it makes it a lot better. I should note though that if you wanted to get really pedantic and really ruin your group's fun, you could, you know, stick a bunch of magical weapons into a bag of holding or a portable hole or your demi-plane or wherever it is you use to store all your magical gear that you're not actually using. And then you could arm each skeleton with its own weapon and roll them all individually if you really want to just ruin everybody's game night. But don't do that. So another thing to keep in mind is who chooses what the creatures are. Sometimes the player gets to choose, and sometimes the DM gets to choose. And I don't want to tell anybody else how to run their game, but when I'm the DM, I try to be pretty fair with the players if I get to choose. If it's like CR4 or lower creature, I don't try to find like a CR 1/8 creature and go, hey, it's lower than CR4, you know, and give them that. I try to be fair and give them something reasonable, right? I also try to keep it terrain specific. That's just more my own thing. So, you know, if they're in the swamp, maybe he gets, you know, a bunch of swamp lizards or alligators. If he's in a forest, maybe he gets a bunch of, you know, rabid beavers or something. Who knows? If they're in the Arctic, maybe he gets some Arctic wolves or whatever it is, right? Wild reindeer, who knows? But, you know, I try to kind of keep it in that vein. I wanted to also mention the idea that one of the most important things on a summoner is you need to be able to maintain your concentration. Because I think it's very reasonable that if enemy casters, or enemies in general, suddenly see somebody casting a spell and 12 creatures all show up, they're probably going to say, we need to hit that guy. Because intelligent creatures are going to, you know, if they have their own spells, they're going to understand how concentration works. If they know people with spells, they're going to understand how concentration works. If they're 10th or 12th or 15th level, they probably know how concentration works. Now, wild animals, maybe not. But intelligent adversaries, yes. And if they see that somebody's maintaining a bunch of summoned creatures suddenly, they're probably going to want to focus that guy down. And I think that's pretty fair. And if I was a caster, I would be like, okay, I probably need to be prepared to face some incoming attacks, and have a shield spell ready or whatever. And it's for this reason that I really think, as much as I usually love Warcaster, it's even more important on a summoner, because you don't want to lose concentration. You don't want all your summons to be dispelled. If it's a tough fight and you thought you needed to summon a bunch of creatures, you don't want to be losing them and having them all disappear. You don't want them to turn against you if you lose control when your concentration gets broken. You really want to be able to make sure that you're going to be able to pass those concentration saves and maintain control of your creatures. And like I said, it's not quite as bad on a Conjurer Wizard because at 10th level you don't have to worry about that anymore. But if you're not a Conjurer, then it's going to be an issue. And, a lot of the things I'm talking about in this video apply to just anybody who wants to take summoning spells. Like I said before, you could be an Evoker who decides to pick up Conjure Elemental. And I think a lot of this is still very applicable to you. You don't have to be completely focused on this one aspect. I just kind of wanted to hone in a bit on it. Having trouble talking here. I wanted to hone in on it for the purposes of this video because, if I just make a video about random summons, who cares? I wanted to mention as well that even though I don't think clerics are great in the summoner role, but they do have a couple standout spells. And those are definitely at least worth mentioning since I've mentioned a lot of the other ones I like. And that is Conjure Celestial and Planar Ally. And Conjure Celestial may not look great on the surface because you only get a CR4 or less, and it's a 7th level spell. You can get a CR5 if you upgrade it to 9th level spell slot. And, by the time you can cast 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells, CR4 and 5 creatures tend to be pretty weak. However, the Quaddle is an amazing choice for Celestial, although I should point out the DM gets to pick, so hopefully he's nice and gives you a Quaddle. Because it has a ton of different spells that it can cast, including a lot of heals and blesses and, restorative type spells. I think it can actually cast Restoration or Lesser Restoration, one of them. And if you don't want to have to use a bunch of your own spell slots to, let's say everybody in the party gets hit with something and you need to use 3 or 4 different restoration spells, well, you can just use your one spell, summon Quaddle instead, and it'll do it for you. Also, it has decent utility in combat. I wouldn't say it's a great combatant, but it's not bad. And, it's just an extra body on the field that can help you out in a pinch. So I think it's a very strong choice, especially if your DM is nice and lets you choose that. There's also some good choices from the other books I mentioned as well, like Tome of Beasts and Creature Codex have more options, and some of those are pretty good as well. Then the other one I mentioned was Planar Ally. And I see a lot of people put off on Planar Ally because you kind of have to bargain with the ally and make some sort of sacrifice. Usually you have to pledge gold to a temple or something else, was one of the examples they give. And so you can't just summon it and control it and have it do your will. It just kind of bargains with you and agrees to help you. However, what I like about it is that it doesn't have the CR limitations that a bunch of other ones do. It will ask for more the more powerful it is my understanding. But you can summon ridiculously powerful things. And as long as you're prepared to spend a bunch of money and pledge money to a temple or whatever it is that this thing wants you to support, you can have ridiculously powerful allies, and it'll stay with you for the duration of the task. And that task could be, help us clear out this dungeon of evil and make the world a safer place. And now the Planetar that you've just summoned, as long as you're willing to agree to its terms, can help you out. And now you've got an amazingly powerful ally, not just for one fight, not just for 1 hour, but for the entire dungeon. And even if it costs you 10,000 gold, what else are you doing with your gold at high levels? That is a level of power that you just don't really see from any of the other summon spells. So I specifically wanted to mention that one. For NPC villains, I really like the gate spell. For players, it's not quite as good because you don't get to control what comes through the gate, and you don't get to you don't get to control it, and you don't get to decide what comes through. You choose where you want to open the gate, but then what comes through is what comes through, and it might attack you, whatever. But for villains, I love the idea that the High Priestess of Lolth casts a gate spell and tries to summon something from the demon web, and Lolth sends one of her most powerful servants to go aid her High Cleric. And then, it makes a good fight. The PCs suddenly have that extra level of threat where it's oh, she's casting gate, something might be coming through. And, now the focus goes from we need to DPS her down to we need to counterspell her with everything we've got. Otherwise, this fight's just going to get even worse. And it kind of adds tension, but it also makes it so that players with the right spells, like counterspells and whatnot, have, a good chance of being able to feel like they're making a difference in those fights. Because if you shut down her gate spell, she's only got 1/9 of a spell, right? So, their most powerful spell's gone. Party feels good that they've managed to avoid the threat. And if they don't avoid the threat, then, you know, the fight just got worse. And now the players have to get resourceful. So, NPC summoners, great thing as well. Just thought I'd mention that. So, that's my basic thoughts on the video. I had considered going through, like, basically every summoning spell in the book and rating them all. I might do that in a separate video at some point. But I've been trying to focus on keeping my videos a little more compact because I've had a couple of videos that are close to an hour long now, and that's asking a lot for somebody to sit through an hour of me. So, you know, in general, I mentioned a lot of the ones that I really like, and a lot of the common ones that I think you'll see used a lot. There's some other good choices as well, but, you know, that'll be the main ones. Like I said, maybe I'll make a follow-up video to this at some point. It won't be right away. But mostly I just want to talk, not about the specifics, but about the idea of summoning and the philosophy behind it, and why it's good, but also why it can be disruptive to a table, and how you can help the players and the DM to have a smooth game and a good experience, rather than just, you know, ruining everything for everyone, which is pretty easy to do if you're, you know, not being careful. So that's my thoughts on the Summoner. Feel free to hit the like button and subscribe if you like the video, and ring the bell for notifications. And thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Bye.